It's Tuesday, January 21st, 2014. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, Nidhogg.
Let's do this.
I spent my birthday weekend out skiing.
Did not die.
Did not die. I'm a pretty good skier.
Your odds of dying increase. It's like buying an extra lottery ticket every time you go skiing.
See, now you
One
say
of them's
that.
going to win eventually.
You say that,
The hospital lottery.
but statistically, people who injure themselves skiing tend to be either people who are very unskilled skiing where they shouldn't, or people who are highly skilled also doing highly dangerous things.
Olympic people have gotten killed during Olympic events.
Yes, during Olympic events. That kind of skiing is pretty intense compared to what I do on an average slope.
It's not, when you ski in the Olympics, it's big, the perfect snow, it's just open, there's nothing around to really smash. It's not like there's trees or rocks or anything.
Scott, there's different skiing events. They're not all just the jump. What do you think they do in the Olympics? Have you ever watched Olympic skiing?
Slaloms, usually.
Yeah.
Moguls.
Yeah, what about the biathlon?
You're not really going as fast in the biathlon.
You got to go pretty fast.
No one's died in the biathlon. They die in like the slalom, which, downhill.
I'm looking up statistics on deaths here. Ski death biathlon. Up. Mike Dixon.
He died in a biathlon?
I don't know. I searched for Olympic death biathlon and Mike Dixon came up. I'm already bored with this.
Did he die from getting shot in the biathlon?
That would be
skiing.
That would be hilarious and also sad. I don't think he died in the biathlon. I'm not sure why he came up
You
in the
don't
search.
say, because the biathlon's pretty safe. If you're doing cross-country skiing, I would not make any mentions of possible dying. You're doing downhill skiing, which is very dangerous.
Okay, there are not that many Olympic deaths ever, if you don't count that massacre.
That massacre, huh?
Yeah, they were not massacred by skis.
Oh, you sure it wasn't the ski lift just collapsing?
All right, so I found one guy who died in a collision skiing during practice.
And
And
this is a Olympic level athlete.
Yeah, one guy in 1964. You realize, Scott, modern skis didn't exist in 1964.
Are skiing deaths up or down per capita?
I'll bet they're down.
You bet, huh?
I would bet. We can try to do some research later, or we'll let someone else, listener, prove me or Scott wrong.
Skiing is mad dangerous.
Wow. So yeah, there's basically almost no one who's died in Olympics. Like there's a Wikipedia page that is just every death at the Olympics, and the Munich massacre pretty much outweighs all the rest combined.
That's a shame.
Yeah. But yeah, Scott, basically ski technology has changed so much between the 90s and now that the kinds of
It's
turns...
made it faster and more dangerous.
It also allows you realize the kinds of turns, like when I turn skiing, it's actually fundamentally different from the way people turned as recently as the early 90s, because you couldn't turn that way with old skis. Carving like I do now, where you kind of like carve like a knife around the edge of the mountain, you couldn't do that with old skis. You basically just fucking slide, and then it was crazy and kind of really hard and dangerous. Not so dangerous anymore, but I digress. I think skiing is probably safer per capita than biking. Just saying. You seem to have a tendency
How many
lately.
guys he dying in the Tour de France?
I've just noticed any time. I'm going to look up how many people have died. Let's see. Tour de France deaths.
And not from assassinations.
Tour de France list of professional cyclists who died during a race. It's way longer than the list of people who have died in any Olympics ever.
Okay.
This is all, oh my God, there's a lot of them. Look at this.
Did they just die from pumping too hard or
All
from crashing?
different ways. Let's see. This guy
Only the
crashed.
crashing ones count.
This guy crashed. This guy crashed. Heart attack.
Heart attack doesn't count. That can
Murdered.
happen in any sport.
Before the race. Crashed with a car. Car crashed into him. Yeah. It's mostly Germans who died. In like 1930, 1917, oh my God, in 1913, like every German died in bike races. Anyway, I digress. It's Tuesday. Any gaming news?
I don't have a gaming news because there's not much happening in the world of gaming right now. I think everyone's saving it up for the PAX East and whatnot. But I want to talk about I ran some Torchbearers yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you do it over a Google Hangout?
We
I saw a
did
tweet.
it over the Google Hangouts. So I got some people together from parts of the country who I knew were down with the torch and knew how to play. And they tried to play RPG over Google Hangout. And I don't know if other RPGs will work over Google Hangout, but Torchbearer works pretty nicely.
A lot of these
if everyone
games
knows
do.
how to play and no one cheats, it's all good.
You know what I think works really well over Google Hangout? The Loot Crane style, like that kind of RPG, because there aren't a lot of dice rolls, and the bookkeeping is mostly on the player's
There are
side.
lots of apps in Google Hangout now that you just click, and basically they appear for everyone. They let you do lower thirds, which helped a lot with character names and dice rolling and all kinds of stuff. So you don't even need any physical bits. But anyway, I just want to say that the last time I tried to run Torchbearer, it was not so good.
It was a disaster.
It wasn't a disaster.
It was kind of a disaster.
It was not the good. It was
well. The disastrous moment is when, and you did so. I've done this before when I've had issues. You stopped and said, "So, I'm just going to read you guys what the module says here because I can't figure out any way to apply what the module says to what is happening."
Yep. But anyway, this time, right? What I did is I took the advices that were given. Right, by people who knew the game better, right? And the advices were the ones that were given before, which is A, if people are going around doing stuff, like they said, they got to like the perimeter. I basically did this house, right? I made a house according to the dungeon building rules, right?
Okay, so you made a straight up dungeon.
Yeah, well, it's a house, but yeah, it's a dungeon.
It's a dungeon. Dungeon is the term for a place where people die trying to get.
They
treasure.
got to the gate, and the first thing they did was go all the way around the gate in the walls, right? So I'm like, I didn't put anything out there. Everything is in the house, dumbasses, right? So they didn't have to roll any dice for that shit. But what I did is when they were walking around it, I made sure to provide ample description and also some hints of what is in store for them, right? But they didn't roll any dice. It didn't take any turns to walk around and do a bump into all this nothingness. And they didn't have to do any dice or anything until they actually bumped into something. And it was just lots of question asking and answering, just like I was told to do. And it worked just fine. Right?
Yeah.
Just don't make them roll dice until they bump into danger. And sure enough, eventually they bumped into a lot of danger. They did a bunch of silly stuff for no reason, but they also did a bunch of other... And then everyone seemed happy, I guess. I mean, I don't think it was like...
Did they get out with loot?
They managed to camp a couple times, and I guess they have more than zero loot, and I think they're gonna when we start playing again, they're just gonna go right back in without going home first to get more stuff. I don't have a feeling that they're going to go straight home with the meager pickings they have now.
Well, I guess I gotta, because what I haven't done yet is actually read the entire book cover to cover. So I guess I gotta do that too, and then we should try to play again locally.
Yeah, I know how to run it now non-crappily.
Yep.
And
if you have one player who knows the rules 100% as well, I think we'll be set.
We have like 4 play. Everyone knows.
I'm
the
saying
rules,
if we play with our current Burning Wheel group, where no one's played any Torchbearer except for
I think another factor
game.
Right in the running well is simply that for any given rule, like everyone knew the rules. No one knew the rules 100%, right? But everyone knew the rules relatively well. So for any time there was a rules question, someone had a good idea of what it was or what page in the book or whatever.
Yep.
So any rules things were solved quickly, whereas where you have one person who knows the rules, if they don't know them 100% perfectly off the top of their head, they're still going to look stuff up, and other people who are lazy and don't read rule books are sitting there waiting, right? So
that's almost a classification I want to start making with RPGs, because some RPGs, the person running it needs to know the rules like to a crazy degree of detail, or the game bogs down.
Well, it doesn't.
Some games don't work at all unless all the players are at least familiar with the rules.
Right. I think it's just that I'm tired of playing. More and more lately, I realize I'm just tired of playing games with people, rather board game, RPG, any kind of game, with people who don't know the rules and refuse to read rule books, right? It's like, I'm not want to be a jerk and not teach you the rules, but it's like these 4 people over here, we all know the rules, and it'll be way fun for us to just play and bust out a game really fast and have a really awesome competition. And just because you happen to be here at this moment, I don't want to be mean to you and be like, I don't want to let you play.
Have you noticed at MagFest?
But you playing will, make us have less fun.
Did you notice at MagFest that I tended to only join games that had people who all know the rules, or I joined games where I didn't know the rules and someone else was teaching me how to play?
Yeah. And this is a large aspect of abandoning board game nights for Netrunner, because you play Netrunner. It's like sometimes you got to teach someone to play Netrunner, but most of the time it's the same people. Everyone plays this game constantly. The game keeps changing so it doesn't get old, right? People keep trying new stuff, and everyone knows all the rules really well.
Well, there's sort of a wider topic with board game culture in general, that the oral tradition of game learning has become so entrenched in that community that a lot of experienced players won't even think to just read the rule book. Like, they expect someone to teach them the game.
Yep.
And while I enjoy that, the reason I'm no longer like being taught how to play games is that
people can't teach the game
most
wrong.
of the people who have taught me a board game in the last year taught it to me fucking wrong.
That's right.
One person taught me a game with no mistakes, and that was Ginkgopolis, which I really like, and we're going to play.
Okay. But yeah, it's like, think about Michael Jordan, right? If you go play basketball with him, if he has to teach you how to play basketball and you suck, that's really boring for him, right?
Maybe not. Maybe he likes a cherry case.
No, he doesn't. It's super boring for him. Trust me. Right? Everything I've heard about Michael Jordan, he would not want to do that.
Magic might have taught you.
Maybe. Right? But it's like, it's the same deal. It's like when you become good at games, right? You personally thirst more for competition with people on an equal level, and it is not as pleasant to sort of, teach people who, it's like, at least, if you at least read the rule book, then it's at least, less, straining on, someone who knows how to play to like play with you.
I think most people who play a lot of board games in the current gaming culture climate have gone for so long without reading rule books that they don't know how to read them.
I think a lot of people just don't know how to read.
No, but I think like in tabletop games, I've noticed that people who tend to be taught games and don't read rule books will read a rule book and literally get nothing out of it.
I mean, I can definitely agree
and these
with
are
that.
people who are really
Look at
good
how many
games.
people, you should see how many people in online game communities, right? It's like we have to ask rules questions online sometimes, right? Especially when things are worded ambiguously and such. But there are lots of people, if you look up game rule facts and things, that ask questions that are A, plainly answered in the unerrated rule book.
Yup.
Or B, plainly answered in a spot online that was visible to all. They could have just
Oh my God, I was playing
but
Hive.
They still typed their question in and asked it, even though it's been answered 100 times.
I was playing Hive
without typing it.
with Pete after skiing, and we had to actually look up a rule. There's kind of this edge case that we couldn't figure out how to handle. So we related to the spider and his movement. So we go to look at
1, 2, 3. What kind of edge case would there be?
All right, so there's a couple of edge cases. One, the rules don't really explicitly state how to handle if the spider would move in a direction, but there's a gap he couldn't slide into.
He can't go in there.
No, he can't go in there. Does that count as a space? Can he move over it?
Well, he would go like 1. He would go. Let's say he goes into that notch, right?
Yep.
He can't move inwards, right?
Yep.
So then he has to go 2, 3 beyond the space.
Are you 100% sure that he can skip over that space like it's a step in his movement?
Yes.
Because the rules don't explicitly say, so I went to look it up. And there was some other thing that came up related to, oh God, now I don't even remember. It was something complicated related to pill bugs and mosquitoes and all this stuff together.
I can't answer anything about pill bugs.
I tried to look up the rule online, and what I discovered was that a lot of people asked other questions about the spider's movement. And their questions came down to they literally didn't read the rules and didn't know how to play, and asked questions like, the spider moves 3. Can he move just 2? Can I move him just 1? Can I choose to move him 0? Can I backtrack? Can the spider go on top like a pill or like a beetle? It's like, no, it can't go on top like a beetle.
It doesn't say any of those things anywhere.
Well, you just made that up. Why would you even think that it can go on top?
Because you're illiterate.
It's like,
and
hey,
you didn't read.
Hey, so I got a sniper rifle in Counter-Strike, so how do I zoom in with the pistol?
Yeah.
Like, that's the level of question.
It's a SOCOM.
Hey, so I got this burger and I'm eating it. Am I still allowed to eat it if it's a cheeseburger instead? Anyway, so for Nintendo, speaking of things not looking so good, it was the fiscal year of Luigi, and Nintendo not to looking so good.
Not to look so good.
You might have noticed articles about Nintendo being in dire straits. I don't think you all might really have looked at the details here. So the news was that Nintendo...
They have a pile of cash, but they're not making any money. They're
losing money now.
Money all over the place.
So here's the two relevant points. One, Nintendo predicted that they would sell shift, meaning to retail, 9 million Wii U's for the fiscal year of Luigi.
Mm-hmm.
But they revised the sales predictions in March, and for the period ending in March, to 2.8 million.
Yep. And the reality was...
So that difference, that they expected to sell 9 million, they barely made 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
So the Wii U, as I've been predicting and as Scott has been saying pretty much since it came out, no one bought it.
Nope.
And no one's planning to buy it.
There's one game.
3DS sales are also down, actually. The operating profit last year was 100 billion yen.
Mm-hmm.
That was the prediction for this coming year as well. Something like that. Instead, you know how much money they made? Negative 35 billion yen.
That's about right.
Iwata gave a completely useless statement.
He always says the same shit, like, oh, we're going to do... But they're not. They need to change drastically, but they refuse to do that because that is not their culture.
They did change drastically once. The GameCube, which I think was Nintendo's console peak... The Wii was a drastic change, both in target demographic.
Right, and it worked so well.
It did work really well.
But they changed their hardware, right? But that really wasn't a change in their culture. The culture of Nintendo has always been to try to invent new and different hardwares, right? That was even though the Wii U physically as hardware was so different from previous game systems. Well, the Wii was so different from previous game systems, right? Even the DS was so different. 2 screens, no one did that shit before. Touch screens, no one did that before. Right?
I remind you of an old show where we said we were going to buy Nintendo DSs because we expected that they might be a Virtual Boy and it would be cool to own them.
That's not a change in Nintendo's culture. That's always been Nintendo's culture, right? And that's the thing, is while their hardware and games and systems and things may change, the culture of Nintendo since the NES, SNES days has been 100% stagnant. They refuse, right? The same company, right, from the NES days that wouldn't put Earthbound, Mother 1, out in the US is the same company that, 20, 30 years later won't put Mother 3 translated in the US.
They decided that Final Fantasy I, one of the most popular games on the Nintendo in America, they didn't want to confuse people by releasing Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the NES, so instead they released Final Fantasy 4 as Final Fantasy 2, and then also released a completely unrelated game as Final Fantasy Mystic Quest to try and trick us.
That's Square, I guess, also partially Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo
right? But it's
has
they made all those games easier because they thought Americans were dumb, and today they put out Donkey Kong whatever with the automatic win mode and such.
Well, even
it might
go back
be too hard.
When the new Mario Tennis came out on the 3DS, and they dumbed it down. They literally made the game less skill-based and less fun.
Right.
Timing doesn't matter. It's just Simon Says while Nintendo guys bounce around.
Right. That same culture of that company has been unchanged for our entire lives, and the world has finally changed enough such that it is negatively impacting them. It's sort of like they were able to it wasn't like a straight up and down, right? It's like up NES, up SNES, down a little bit N64, up a little bit GameCube, up GBA, up Wii, down, Wii way up, Wii way down.
It's
and now
this
is the down that is the bigger down that will not stop going down.
There's a reason
It is already Virtual Boy down.
Years ago, I basically
up,
liquidated
3DS down.
all investments I had in Nintendo, expecting this to all be a disaster, and I was correct. But if you notice, when I think back, the NES and the Super Nintendo were kind of like they were my life at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got a PC, and when the N64 came out, I didn't even bother.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretty much didn't play consoles anymore. The GameCube did a lot of cool things, and they went in a cool direction. They really started targeting games and visions and futures that I was really down with. And the Wii was a complete departure from that, and it was valuable, but I think the reason the Wii U failed is actually very, very simple. Independent of their culture and all these problems, the Wii sold to the so-called casual gamer, mom, grandfather demographic because it had a really compelling case for them. It was cheap. It had these fun games, and the Wii U motion control for those simple, like Wii Bowling, that was great for that market, and they sold a ridiculous amount of these consoles.
They basically sold, really, just a machine that plays that one game and maybe also Wii Fit, right?
Yeah, and otherwise, it was just a glorified GameCube, but they didn't even make more GameCube-style games for it.
It wasn't even, it wasn't really, I mean, it was a console, right? But to those people that caused the hardware to sell so much, right? The software on the Wii didn't sell as crazily as the software on other systems.
So when the
right?
Wii U came out,
except for
the people who bought a Wii have literally no reason to buy a Wii U.
They already have a toy that plays Wii Bowling, right? It's like they bought a Wii Bowling machine, literally. They didn't, they didn't buy games for it, except for maybe, that was it. Wii Sports is the game they had for it, the end.
Yep. So then the Wii U, not only does it not do what they want, or just like they can buy it, but it doesn't buy them anything. But if you look at the advertising and look at the Wii U it looks like the kind of device that the kinds of people who play Wii Bowling would never want to own.
Nope.
It doesn't have anything for them. It would have had something for us, but I learned from the Wii that they're never going to make a game that actually uses that touchpad for anything.
Nope.
I know they won't. They have never made use of any of the cool hardware they have ever put out.
Except the touchscreen on the DS.
Which even then isn't also ran in most cases.
Yeah, I mean...
in fact, every game I play, every single game I play in my 3DS, the touchpad might as well not be there.
Here's the thing, Nintendo, right? Look throughout their history, they've been always about making crazy controllers of all different shapes and sizes, right? To try to get different and interesting games.
The Virtual
U-Force
Boy
is not Nintendo.
Oh yeah,
the Power Glove. There was a keyboard for the NES. The Zapper.
But the Zapper was good.
The Power Pad.
Yep. The
Super Scope we already mentioned.
Yep.
Right? The GBAs plus GameCube, right? But think about this. Even the Zapper, which is great. How many Zapper games were there?
Trying to think now.
Hogan's Alley Duck Hunt.
Yep.
Can you name a third?
There were one or two more.
Yeah, there were, but can you name them?
Bayou Billy.
3.
Bayou Billy.
Can you name a fourth?
I'm working on it with Google. Zapper games.
Right. This is my point. Nintendo, for all their controller development, their most successful controller is the D-pad and buttons. That is the only really successful controller they've made besides the DS touchscreen.
Okay, so I expected that there were a bunch we'd never heard of. I can list them all right now. Bayou Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Baby Boomer, which was
never heard of it.
Unlicensed bullshit game.
Okay, it doesn't count then.
Barker Bill's Trick Shooting.
Never heard of it.
Chiller, which I owned, unlicensed.
Oh, Chiller.
Yeah, that was unlicensed. That was a Tengen cartridge.
That kind of counts.
Yeah. Daydreamin' Davy apparently used the gun.
Never heard of it.
Really? You never heard of Daydreamin' Davy?
No.
Okay, I think the Angry Video Game Nerd did a thing on it. You should watch it.
Right.
But yeah, that game I had that game. I didn't know use the gun. Duck Hunt, Freedom Force, Gotcha the Sports, which I think was paintball. Gumshoe, Hogan's Alley, Laser Invasion, Lone Ranger, Mechanized Attack, Operation Wolf, Shooting Range, To the Earth, Track and Field 2, and Wild Gunman. That is literally it.
Mm-hmm. So even when they have a successful alternate controller, the culture has never changed. They just make a few games for it. Oh, Wii controllers. Yeah, here's a few Wii Sports games for it. Right? So make games for your successful controller that has lasted you a zillion years, your D-pad plus buttons. Make games for that.
Yeah, I mean, they made a bunch of games on the GameCube.
You have the capability. Just make a Super Metroid that's really fucking big.
Or another WarioWare that's local multiplayer, which we're going to talk about in a second. So, things of the day. This is a video. Very good video. It is 14 minutes of goalies being really pissed off, attacking people, breaking their sticks, getting kicked out of the game. It's just a montage of goalies being really angry. Mm-hmm. I love stuff like this. Ever since, I don't know, I was going to say that RIT time, but really it was ever since I was a little kid.
Okay.
I pretty much always loved goalies either succeeding wildly or failing miserably.
Okay. So, Team Covenant, right, is this store. I think it's in somewhere like Oklahoma or some shit. It's not any place you want to go, right? But it's this game store, and this game store primarily sells Fantasy Flight games, right? Which happens to be the company that publishes many tabletop games like Netrunner and others, right? And when they were at the Fantasy Flight World Championships, right, they interviewed the CEO of Fantasy Flight Games, Christian T. Peterson. And they interview him for like an hour. And he says some pretty fascinating shit that anyone who cares about tabletop games in the U.S. probably will be interested in. Like, why does Fantasy Flight have so many freaking Cthulhu games? Because the guy, Christian T. Peterson, is a big Cthulhu fan. That's why.
Oh.
Why? What's the deal with... what's the stupid, really long space game? Is it Twilight Imperium, I think? Whichever the one is, the really long, 4X space game that they make. It's he made it way back in the day, and they had many editions of it and whatever. He talks all about how they made it and everything. He talks about how, the LCGs, how what would happen is they would go to Europe, and they would try to sell... the collectible games, collectible card games, right? Like the Game of Thrones and whatever.
Yep.
And how, the Europeans just be like, oh, it's collectible, and walk away. Just like
we do?
Yeah, they'd be into the game, it'd be collectible, and they'd walk away, and that's how we made the LCG. And how a lot of the stuff they do is the international market, and why they have so many licensed games, and how they get such big licenses like Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and everything, and how he was a Thrones hipster, how they were doing Thrones stuff 10 years ago before it was cool, and had to give people the book so that they would like it, and pretty fascinating stuff here. It's if you care about tabletop games, you should watch this. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah. In the Meta Moment, the book club book is...
Iduru by William Gibson. I finished reading it a while ago. When do we do an episode?
Soon. I don't know if we'll do a show on Thursday, but we'll do one soon.
What are we doing Thursday?
I might have stuff to do.
Doing stuff, huh?
Yep, maybe.
Yep.
And we're slowly getting back up to our full steam of Geeknights.
Maybe you could tell me what the next book is going to be, so I can read it. Maybe.
The trouble is, I just read like 5 books, but they're all culture books, and I feel like it would be wrong to just do another culture book.
I can make some suggestions.
Though, I think my favorite culture book after Player of Games is either Look to Windward, depending on how it ends, because I'm mostly done with it, or Use of Weapons.
I like just the title, Use of Weapons.
Use of Weapons might be your favorite.
Maybe.
Because you're not going to really figure out what's going on until the end. You'll be like, oh.
What do you mean? I usually figure things out right away.
I know, you usually do. And I'm saying with this one, you probably won't, because I also didn't. I figured out a lot of things, but then there was a thing I didn't figure out.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll read it before I die. Or before I am old enough that I think I should die. I may just get killed by a meteorite tomorrow.
It's funny because that's the part of Look to Windward I'm at right now, where a guy who's this big, like, cat tar dude is watching someone die in the culture. Because the guy's like, yep, I'm old. I'm going to die now, but...
Okay.
Because he's done. He's bored.
All right.
So, yeah, join the forum. Look at all our videos on the internet. Submit your panels to Kineticon because we're actively scheduling currently.
Go to conventions like Kineticon.
Yep.
And PAX East.
Go to MagFest, even though it's a long ways out.
It's a long way away.
Go to PAX East 08. It sold out immediately.
I go to it anyway. Enforce, I guess.
Book your hotel for PAX Prime now.
Book your hotel for PAX East 2015.
Yep.
Book your hotel for MagFest 2015.
MagFest hotel never sells out.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Can't hurt.
Well, because there's no room block yet, so you'd probably pay a lot of money.
Animu Boston, not too far off.
No, yeah, Animu Boston. I got to finish our
Let's just name
stuff.
every convention for the whole year that we might go to.
We're going to go to a lot. These are just conventions that we're pretty much guaranteed to go to.
Yeah. New York City, visit it. Or live in it if you're not a nobody. In the ancient times when Norse mythology was true, and Odin was all badass, but still real, and Thor was chillin' too, there was a tree of life named Yggdrasil, and it was a tree just chillin', but there was this badass dragon, and that dragon would be all like, man, I'm thirsty, yo, because, fire parches the throat, you gotta... fire breathing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the dragon was so badass, it didn't just go to like the Pacific Ocean or whatever and be like, gulp, gulp, gulp. That water tastes like shit. It's full of fish and whales. You don't want to eat that. This dragon, he'd go to that tree and he'd be like, hey, you're the tree of life. Water's good enough for you is good enough for me. Right? In fact, only the water that's good enough for you is good enough for me. So I'm just going to bite on your root here and suck that shit out. Take that, tree. Look how badass I am.
Yep, here's a picture of him just kind of biting on the tree.
Yep.
Just hanging out down there.
That is one badass dragon. Just like, yeah, fuck you. I'm drinking from yet untasted wells.
That was a good reference.
Yeah. So some dudes decided to make a game named after this dragon. That game is named Nidhogg, which is the name of the dragon.
Won a lot of awards. It was one of those indie games that just wins a bunch of awards at things.
Right. They were working on this game for years and years and years. You could play this game at various indie gaming events, some of which I went to. I didn't play it, but I saw it played. And, there would be people set up arcade machines like Baby Castles and those sorts of places where this was one of the games you could play. But the game was not yet released. It was not available for all the world. It was some, exclusive boutique item only available to a few, privileged people.
Yeah, I mean, look at this wooden controller setup for it.
Right. So, just like a week or two ago, the game was put on the Steam after years and years and years and years of development. Why did it take so long to make a game that looks all pixely and shit that you think would take someone 5 minutes? Because they polished that turd till it was so shiny and smooth you couldn't even hold on to it anymore.
The phrase that I learned from...
Breathing left a noticeable mark upon its surface because it was so polished.
I believe the phrase that I learned from was it Miles or Mayhem? Miles Mayhem? I think it was Miles.
Okay.
So in Mask, that show, Miles Mayhem or Max Mayhem, I forget which one of them because they were brothers. I think Max was dumber than Miles, said that his car, in learning to drive it, a minute to learn, but a lifetime to master.
Okay.
That is it. This game is a pure 2-player direct competition ortho game. Mm-hmm. It is such a pure and beautiful competition that I think it is going to spawn for the wider gaming group, the wider gaming culture, a renaissance of this kind of symmetric multiplayer versus
I
game.
think it, that was already sort of spawned, and this is, not stage 0, but it's like, stage 1.
All right, well, I'll put it this way. This game brought it to wider attention.
Yes.
Because there were, Dive Kick even was in this genre.
Right, so I'm seeing a lot of this lately, right? So Magical Drop 5 came out on Steam, right? That wasn't really a huge hit, but it's like, if you go to MagFest, there's people playing Magical Drop, right?
No, there were people playing Windjammers.
That's another thing I want to mention is Windjammers, right? Which I only resent because it was on the same Neo Geo machine as Magical Drop, so it was hard to play Magical Drop when all these bros were playing Windjammers. Another 2-player direct versus game, right? It's like usually that genre, a video game where 2 people play against each other in some sort of competition, it's over very quickly, was limited to pretty much fighting games, mostly, right?
Unless you reach way back to Atari, where there wasn't really AI yet. So the majority of the Atari games were that style of game. Combat, Outlaw, slot racers.
Yep. We're talking one-on-one that's not a fighting game, right? So, this is something that has always been sort of popular, but has been sort of underserved genre of gaming, and now it is getting extra served. I'm seeing lots of stuff coming out. Andrew really likes that Bari Ball thing.
Yep.
But Nidhogg is the latest, hottest entrant in the category.
So the game is really simple. It's symmetric. You got 2 dudes.
2 dudes, orange dude and yellow dude.
The dudes have swords.
And they're trying to get to the end. So orange dude is on the left, I think? No, orange dude's on the right. And orange dude is trying to get to the left as far as he can possibly go to where victory lies. And yellow dude is on the left. And
all you have to do is get all the way to the end.
He's trying to go to the right as far as he can go until he finds victory.
The screen is some number of... The field is some number of screens across, and you have an arrow, and if whichever color has the arrow, you just have to go and get to the next screen, get to the next screen.
It's quite similar to football, right? If the ball is you, get yourself to the end zone.
Yep. So if you have the arrow, you just try to get past the other dude.
Well, at the beginning of the game, no one has an arrow.
We'll get to that.
You're just standing there, and you got to fight.
So here's what you can do.
If you die, the other guy, if you kill the other guy or he dies, you get the arrow, which means you can go.
So here's what you can do. You can walk, which is basically running.
Mm-hmm.
You can jump. Out of a jump, you can roll. You
can't roll out of a jump.
You can land and then roll.
You can just roll without jumping.
Yeah, you can just do that. You can dive kick.
Dive kick.
You can pick up a sword.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can fence with it and or stab with it and or throw it.
Mm-hmm.
You can punch. You can rip out a motherfucker's heart with your bare hands.
If you aren't holding a sword.
Yes. But if you have a sword, just stab him. You don't need to pull the heart out.
Well, if you don't, you punch when you lose your sword, usually by throwing it or being disarmed.
Now, if you kill the other guy, then you get right of way. Just go, 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 go. And the other guy tries to stop you.
Well, the other guy will respawn in front of you after some, amount of space, and then you will have to either jump over him or murder him, or at least find some way around him to continue going. But if he kills you, then he gets the right of way and can now go in the opposite direction which you want the game to go. If
you make it all the way to the end, you win that match.
Yep.
And that's it. There's no score other than who won.
Who wins.
You go, it's just, this is why this game
There's a built-in tournament mode.
Is probably one of the most obvious candidates for the PAX Prime Omegathon finale that has ever existed.
I agree.
It is exciting to watch. It is exciting to play for the same reasons that Pong is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There is one positional heuristic. Which screen are you on? There's one victory condition. You got to the end.
I mean, think about this. The first two video games were pretty much Spacewar and Pong. Both of them were two-player direct versus games. Yet, that kind of game disappeared, a lot. There's very few of those, except fighting games. Very few.
Oh, you can block. You can disarm someone by moving your sword over their sword.
I already said that.
Yeah. You can wall jump. If you hit a wall, you can sort of run up it Kung Fu style and then jump back down.
Mm-hmm.
You can hang onto a ledge and kind of hang out there for a little bit.
You don't want to do that.
Sometimes you want to do that.
Okay.
But the fact, much like Pong, if say I'm playing Pong against Scott and I get 9 points, it's 9-0. There is no mathematical reason Scott couldn't come back from that and win. Mm-hmm. Every single match of Pong, every single point is a completely separate stateless game.
Yep.
Tennis is the same way. I could be match point, and I could come back from nothing to win.
Yep.
So as a result, this game will be exciting, and the second it's no longer exciting, that's because it's over.
Pretty much any game, like that. Those are the perfect games, right? Tennis.
There's no way to grief.
Pong.
There's no way, it's a two-player competitive game. And the fact that it's local multiplayer is even more key because watching people play this, they get really into it really quick.
Mm. I mean, I played it with some people who weren't that into it, but most people get into it.
People I didn't expect to get into it, they're like, I don't know, and then they start playing and playing and playing and playing and playing.
Just watching it on YouTube, I was like, oh shit, this game, it's on.
I've decided. Now, this game illustrates something that Dive Kick also illustrated. The people who are obsessed with these ultra complex fighting games and MOBAs, in a way, these games are like anti-MOBAs because the heuristics are direct and obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in the game is so straightforward. And look at Dive Kick. You can jump and you can kick. You're just not even a direction. There's no D-pad.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that game is actually a deep and complex fighting game.
Yep.
If you think that it's just bullshit because it's so simple, I defy you to beat the people who win the tournaments. Mm-hmm. Go nuts.
Yep.
Have fun.
Yep.
They're just as more better than you at that than that guy who's good at Fox only Final Destination no items is.
All right, and this is the thing is all games in general, sometimes you add complexity to a game and you actually added meaningful, more difficult decisions to be made that actually, right? It's like, if you take I don't know. So if you have Street Fighter and you only have punch and you add kick, that's a meaningful difference, right? That you now have punch and kick versus just punch. Right? But if you start adding tons and tons and tons of stuff, eventually a lot of that stuff becomes redundant. Like
it's either not
a projectile slightly more fast, slightly less powerful, or do you throw this slightly faster? It's like
some of those things will either fall inside of the Pareto frontier, meaning they're objectively worse than all other options you have.
Yep.
Like literally, you would only use them if you wanted to lose, like playing as Dan.
Yep.
Or they're so powerful compared to the rest that people use only that, like snaking. Or in some broken shitty fighting game, sweeping the leg. Oh, you can sweep the leg in Nidhogg.
Yeah. But it's like, okay, so we'll add, people will just add mechanics on mechanics and mechanics to make a game so complicated, right? It's like you took Street Fighter. Originally, Street Fighter was just, 6 attacks, jumping, ducking, blocking, and special moves. And it's like, all right, now we're going to add in supers, and then we're going to add in ultras, and then we're going to add in, focus attack, dash cancels. And it's like, at what point, is it like you're just adding more stuff and it's not actually enhancing the game in any meaningful way?
Now, I'm not saying there's not a place for complex games like that,
no.
But a lot of the people who are really into those games, and MOBAs are the biggest offender other than fighting games at this point.
Add the shop, and then we'll add the secret shop, and then we'll add the boss, and then we'll add...
They really like to denigrate simpler games as, oh, well, I play my MOBA because the skill cap is so high. These games have equally high or effectively equally high skill caps within the realm of what humans are capable of, but yet they're intuitive enough to where you can learn by playing or watching. I dare you to learn how to be effective at Dota 2 just by watching what other people do.
Watching one game of it.
Yes, without commentary from them explaining why they're doing what they're doing.
Another thing that's good about games like this, and say Outlaw, right, is that because you can sort of learn everything there is to know about the game in like 30 seconds, the winners of the game, they tend to be really good for determining like who truly is better, right? Whereas, I might be way smarter than someone. Someone is just objectively not smart.
Yeah, you might be. I mean, there's a possibility.
Yeah, they just failed.
Somewhere.
They failed everything at school, and they're just not a smart person, right? But they spent a long time with Dota, and they know a lot of Dota-specific information, right? I might lose to them. If I bothered to study Dota, I probably maybe could just beat them every single time because I maybe have more skills than they do. But because they studied it and I didn't, and it requires study, I can't beat them. So is it really testing who is better? What does that result of that game mean? It means they studied more. Well, but if we play some Nidhogg, right, and you only need to study it for like 5 minutes. So after about like 10 tries, or at most, every game, hence the fourth, is more meaning. Like the result means something. It means, look, we've both played in this game enough that there is no secret in it that the other person does not know, but I keep winning every time. That means something. It means I'm better than you.
At the same time, it's a very complex... I mean, if we want to get into what the core test of skill of a different game is and what's the difference between a practice skill and a knowledge skill, I think a better example might be chess. Because chess, no matter how smart you are and how good you are at games, if you haven't studied and played and practiced chess, you're going to lose to someone who has, even if you are the almighty god of games in a general sense.
That's true.
But if you want to make chess
Go.
your thing, then you'll be good at chess. But playing chess by itself is not going to teach you, likely, to become much better at chess, but studying chess and reading books about chess will give you specific insights that make you demonstrably better immediately.
I want to see someone who's really good at chess. Like, let's get Kasparov and like teach him Puerto Rico and see if he can get good at Puerto Rico.
Or
right? does the specific knowledge of like chess patterns help you at all to play regular board games?
Or play Bobby Fischer's randomized chess, where you can't study openings because the starting set is different every time.
Maybe.
Yeah. As long as you have basic chess heuristics.
Sure. I think we would still lose at that because there's still a lot of chess stuff.
We would, but I remember as a kid, a lot of my friends were really good at chess, and then one day I decided, all I did was I looked online and I found like 2 openings that were kind of classically known openings, and I memorized my first 10 moves for those 2 openings. And I memorized a couple of variations in case the people did something different, and I just wing it after that. And I won like 90% of the chess games I played with people who weren't chess experts after that point.
Yep.
That knowledge alone made me unreachable to players who did not have that knowledge, even if they were otherwise smarter than me and better than me at chess other than having memorized an opening. But anyway, this game is just one in a long line of a genre that a lot of people don't really think about. I think now that the year of Luigi is finally gone, it's going to be the year of local multiplayer and the year of 2-player ortho games.
2-player games are where it's at. Outlaw remakes. All kinds of shit is coming.
Now think about why. There's no politics. There's no way for the person who's losing to ruin the game for everybody else because the game ends. There's no way for griefing. There's no way for politicking. It's just a competition, pure and simple. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
came into the shop and said, I want to know what the problem is. I said, you don't want to know what the problem is. And she said, I want to know what the problem is so I can get the problem fixed. I said, you don't want to know what the solution to the problem is, and you don't want to know what your problem is. She says, how do you know that I'm not gonna like it? I said, I know you're not gonna like it. So she said, just tell me what it is and I'll tell you if I like it. And I said, maybe. Maybe I'll tell you. She said, why won't you tell me? I said, the problem's your ass. She said, what? I said, the problem's your ass. She said, what? I said, the problem's your fucking ass. Your ass is all fucked up and you got problems with your ass. She said, why are you saying this to me? And I said, it's your fucking problem. You're the one with a fucked up ass. She started to storm out, so I said, wait. She said, what? I said, wait. She said, what? Is this about my ass? And I said, no. Kind of. Your ass is mad fucked up and you don't want to face the problem. She said, what's your problem? I said, my problem is that you come in here with a fucked up ass and you don't want someone to tell you that your ass is fucked up. I don't even know how you go to the bathroom. I don't even know how you sit on things. When you stand up, where does your ass go? Where was your ass in the first place? Where was your ass in 1969? Where was your ass on 9/11? I thought you said you'd never forget. She said, I'm leaving. And I said, not before you get your official diagnosis. Here it is. You're fucked up and your ass is fucked up. Are you ready for the solution? She said, what? And I said, here's the solution. Are you ready?
Der Arschlecker.
I'm gonna replace your ass. I'm gonna replace your ass. I'm gonna take it off and replace it. I'm the ass replacer.